Hello, and welcome to the virtual Scandinavia House and today's book event celebrating Iceland for the Nordic Council Literary Prize. Joining us today is Elísabet Jökulsdóttir, and this will be moderated by Larissa Kyzer. Steinar Bragi is the other nominee from Iceland and is unable to join us today. In 1952, the Nordic countries decided to cooperate closely in the wake of the Second World War, and they formed the Nordic Council. The Nordic Council and the Nordic cooperation also includes Denmark, Iceland, Finland, Norway, and Sweden, along with Åland Islands, the autonomous region in the Gulf of Bothnia, the Sami peoples of northern Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Faroe Islands and Greenland. One of the goals of this cooperation is to make the Nordic countries the most integrated and the most sustainable region in the entire world. To celebrate its 10-year anniversary in 1962, the Nordic Council created its literary prize. This was exactly 60 years ago. Every year since, they paid tribute to some of the very best Nordic literature and rewarded some of the finest works from this vast region. Past Icelandic winners include Olafur Jóhann Sigurdsson in 1976, Snorri Hjartarson in 1981, Thor Vilhelmsson in 1988, Frida A. Sigurðardóttir in 1992, Einar Mar Gudmundsson in 1995, Sean in 2005, Gerda Eliasson in 2011, and Eidor Eva Olafsdóttir in 2018. Excuse my pronunciation. This year's winner will be announced on November 1st in Helsinki, Finland. On Thursday at 1 p.m., we'll be speaking with the Sami nominee, Mari Sambi Mari. This talk is being recorded and will be made available on our website, scandinavias.org, as well as our YouTube page. Feel free to ask questions in the Q&A section, and we'll get to them towards the end of the event. So moderating today is Larissa Kyzer. She's a writer and an Icelandic to English literary translator. Her translation of Kristins Eriksdóttir, A Fist or a Heart, was awarded the American Scandinavian Foundation's 2019 Translation Prize. The same year, she was one of the Princeton University translators in residence. In 2020, Larissa co-founded Eth and Thorn, a chapbook dedicated to Icelandic poetry and short fiction and translation. She is the co-chair of PEN America Translation Committee and runs the virtual Women Plus in Translation reading series, Jill. So please welcome Larissa.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to introduce Elísabet, and then we will start with a short reading from the book. So Elísabet Jökulsdóttir, born 1958, has received several awards and recognitions for her work, most recently the Icelandic Literary Prize for Fiction 2020 for The Chill of the April Sun, something really special, Aprílsólarkuldi, which we're going to be talking about today. She also is a two-time recipient of the Women's Literature Prize in 2007 for Advice of the Locksmith, and in 2014 for No Dance by Ufsaklettur, which was also a nominee for the Nordic Council Literature Prize in 2016. Elísabet was also a candidate for the 2016 presidential election. She feels she has a handle on various styles, the absurdist as much as the realistic. The Chill of the April Sun has also been nominated for the 2022 Nordic Council Literature Prize, which is, of course, why we are here today. So hello, Elísabet.
Yes, hello.
Very nice to see you.
Yes, same to you.
I thought that perhaps we could start either with a short reading for the book or just a brief description of the plot, just so that people have a sense of what it's about.
Yeah, the plot.
Yeah.
It's about a young woman, 20 years old, mm-hmm. and she loses her father, and the relationship between them hasn't been good. He was an alcoholic, and he disappeared in her upbringing. Mm-hmm. And then he dies, and she can't show any sorrow. She can't show any sorrow, so she went into a world of madness. And but before that, she fell in love with for first time, and the love is. Like going into another world, and this is very fragile for her. Mm-hmm. And then he left her, and then and then she showed no sign of sorrow, and then she is going into this world of madness. And we will, in the end, we will follow her where she wanders around the town, asking people and saying she's gonna free the world, and she's always trying to get into the television to free the world. But then her mother comes into the story, and she's taking her and calling the police to get her into a madness house, or what do you call it?
Mental institution.
Mental institution, yeah. So the books really ends there when her mother bring her there.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because it's just a small book. It's only 143 pages, and you cover so much ground. And there's only 4 chapters, so it's the first chapter is her father dies. The second chapter, she meets and falls in love with Kjartan, her the love of her life up to that point. And then third chapter is she has difficulties in love, and both she gets a job actually working at the mental institution, which I think is worth mentioning. And Kjartan goes and works on a ship. He's a fisherman. And then in chapter 4 is where like she sort of starts to break with reality. And yeah, I think you get an incredible amount into such a small book. But I also think it's worth, and we can talk about this a little more later, but this idea of all of this emotion you can't express, and these two different, very, very different relationships with two very different men. Her father, who she had a rough relationship with, and she doesn't know how to mourn him. And then this love that she has for Kjartan, which is like so passionate and obsessive that it like takes over her whole life.
Yeah.
So maybe before we go any further, would you like to read just a little bit, and then I can read a little from the English?
Yes, okay. Dáin, hvernig gat það verið? Hvað þýddi þetta orð? Hún skildi ekki orðið, henni var gjörsamlega fyrirmunað að skilja það. Það var eins og hún væri fáviti, hún endurtók orðið upphátt og í huganum aftur og aftur. Dáin, en hún var engu nær, og nú var þetta orð farið að stjórna lífi hennar. Þessi saga unga stúlku á norðurhveli jarðar sem missir pabba sinn og atburðina í kjölfar þess. Hún veikist á geði því hún getur ekki sýnt sorgarviðbrögð. Hún verður ástfangin eftir dauða föðursins og kynnist dópi í leiðinni. Þegar kærastinn fer frá henni sýnir hún heldur engin sorgarviðbrögð, geðveikin nær tökum á henni, því hún hefur fengið áfall ofan í áfall, fyrst mist föðurinn, svo kærastan. Sjúkdómur hennar sennilega meðfæddur en brýst nú fram, og hver veit hvort það að hún stendur á þröskuldi fullorðinsáranna hefur sín áhrif. Hún vill ekki fara með barnið inn í fullorðinsárin, því fyrst þarf að næra og hugga barnið, bernskuna, en hefst nú sagan.
Thank you. All right, and I'm going to read just a small excerpt from a translation that was done by Björk and Andrew Cothery.
Yeah.
And let me just scroll here. Okay. Dead. Dead. How could that be? What did it mean, this word? It was incomprehensible. She was utterly unable to grasp what it meant. It was like she was some kind of simpleton. She repeated the word in her head over and over. Dead. It got her nowhere. And now this word had taken control of her life. This is the story of a young girl in the Northern Hemisphere who loses her father and the events that follow. Unable to express any reaction to her grief, she becomes mentally ill. Following her father's death, she falls in love, and the relationship leads her into drug abuse. When her new boyfriend abandons her, she is once more unable to express her grief. Her mental problems overwhelm her, having endured the double blow of losing first her father and then her boyfriend. It's probably a disorder she was born with, now flaring up. And who knows whether the fact that she is on the threshold of adulthood adds to its effects. She does not want to lead the child into adulthood because you first need to nourish and comfort the childhood. And now the story begins.
Yeah.
So, on that note, I thought maybe an interesting place for us to start talking would be at the fact that this book, it's a novel, but it's largely based on your own experiences. So it's got an autofiction quality to it. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how it felt to go back to events of your own life that happened quite a while ago and deal with them now, and how writing about a character who has such a Védís uses language to deceive people, including herself. So how did it feel to write about real things through the eyes of somebody who can't tell the truth?
Yeah, could you repeat the last word?
Yeah, how did writing about someone who lies pretty constantly help you discover your own truth, to figure out more about what happened to you in your own life?
Yeah, the reason why I did this to a novel and didn't use the word I, but I used the word she, because I had been written this story for 10 years. I wrote again and again and again, and I started again and again and again. And then I was exhausted to tell the story. And one night I just laid back in the sofa and said, Elísabet, you have to tell the story as it was. And then it was like an explosion in my mind. And I started to write the story. And it took me 3 weeks to get it down to the paper. And yeah, I don't know if it answered your question, but anyway, I felt it was, I could make some distance while writing it in a novel, but not in a self-biography. Yeah.
I also think it's kind of amazing that you say it took you 3 weeks, like you'd been working on it for 10 years.
Yeah.
But then once you switched the perspective, you got it done in 3 weeks. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was. And so, of course, I worked on it after the 3 weeks. But the main story came just, I was writing like I was saving my life. I just was sitting there and writing, and everything came out in 3 weeks. So I used the year or two to make it finer and so on and on.
You said that you had been using I and then you switched to she, and that was something that I actually was also going to ask you about, because there are a couple places where you do actually say I, where you, the author, step into the story, and you're talking about Védís, but then you say, you know, I was just a normal girl, or and you kind of come out in those moments in a way that I think is a really interesting balance between you, the author, and the sort of version of you that Védís is.
Yeah, many people notice this, but this is not so common in the book. It's only a few places.
Yeah.
And I think it's to make the mystical.
Yeah.
And to make the author what's going on. No, what's going on then. But it's to remind the reader that I am writing the story and there is somebody writing it. It isn't, to remind the reader of the author, actually. And I don't know.
I think it's wonderful. I think it actually reminds me of, I really love the author Muriel Spark.
Yeah.
And she does things like that. And you sort of pull out of the story a couple of times where you say, you'll mention something that happens 10 years after the story ends. Like,
Yeah.
after the story ends, Védís goes hitchhiking around Europe, or 10 years after the story ends, she gets a phone call from someone about her father who's been dead for, decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting way to play with time.
Yeah, I wanted to do maybe more of this. And
Mhm.
this actually just came to me, that it's a very simple way to show that the story does not end where it
Mhm.
ends.
Right.
Because everybody was saying, why don't you tell us more about the end? And
Mhm.
and then I used this as to say that she survived, and she had a life
Mhm.
after her mother takes her to the mental
Institution.
institution.
Mhm.
So, and yeah.
I think I think it's great. I think it's one of my favorite parts about the book is that sort of zoom in and zoom out,
Yeah.
and the fact that I feel like a lot of stories that would deal with subject matter like this, most of the
Yeah.
book would be in the institution, but because you end it before that, you sort
Yeah.
of you pull the focus to the experience, like her emotional mental state, and to the fact that she's going to be okay in the future. And I think
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful to just to end where you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Mm.
Do you want to talk maybe a little bit about how memory works in the book? Because it's not fully chronological. It's more guided by feeling. Like she'll think of something and then that reminds her of something else, and the story kind of goes like this instead of on a straight line.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think this is what was not quite. I didn't think about it because all the story just happened, and I was writing it, and this came and came, and I didn't know why. But I like it very much when the story maybe took step forward, and she was suddenly hitchhiking in Europe, and I just thought it was fun, and it was nothing highly special about it. And yeah, so yeah, I think I did it just for fun. So because I thought it was funny. So and also the memories I liked. Also to show that her life maybe hadn't changed that much, but and the memories they were also alike her life, which I'm talking about in the book. And also to show that she has a life of her own. She could travel alone without her father thinking all the time about, or the boyfriend. So she could travel alone, and I think that was great that she did that, or I did that.
I think it's great that you did that too.
Yeah.
I think it's also it's just such it's such an accurate way of talking about or showing memory, I think, because I think when you read a lot of biographies, or you watch like a movie about someone's life, they
Yeah.
always structure it like this happened and then this happened and then this happened and then this happened, but that's not really how memory works. Like
No.
you think of something and then it reminds you of something else, and you just kind of move through
Yeah.
life in a much more organic way.
Yeah. I have done it in one more book, that it's a book about the good memories about me and my father, because I couldn't cry after he died, and I have twins, And I said to them, I can't cry after my father died. And then they say, to take all the good memories and write it down and talk about it for a week. And that was in that story, in that book, I used this going forth and back. And my twins, they like most the story when I got the memories back and forth without any logical reason. Because as you say, the memories work like that. They come and go, and maybe when you're sitting somewhere not thinking of nothing, and then the memory comes and take over.
Exactly. You've written like 30 books, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
then,
26 or 7, I think
yeah.
so.
And then plays and super short stories and journalism, and you've had so many different interesting jobs. I think you worked on a fishing boat, is that right?
Yeah, for 6 weeks.
Yeah, you've had all of these like just incredibly interesting experiences, and I'm interested in how would you say that you integrate that into all of your work, or is it just these 2 special projects where you used your life so much as inspiration?
No, I have used my life as inspiration in many books, and also my love life and my boyfriends, and they haven't read the books maybe. I don't know about that, but anyway, I think I'm creating my life while I'm writing about myself, and I'm trying to, as a scientist, to see how it works, to see what happened and how does it end. And so people often shame me for writing about myself, but not anymore because I'm so clever about it. But anyway, we have an author called Þórbergur Þórðarson.
He's one of my favorites.
Oh, really? Yeah. He was always writing about himself, and that was long before we started it. So it was about 1930 or something.
I love his books so much.
Yeah.
And it's a similar thing where it's an integration of like things that really happened, and then sort of this mystical outlook that he had on the world, and his own kind of fictions, and everything just kind of gets built together.
Yeah.
And I think I love what you have to say about kind of creating yourself as you're writing it.
Yeah.
Because I think we often think about it going the other way, like you live your life and then you write it down. But I like the idea that your writing also makes you.
Yeah, yeah. And I was writing one book of, I had a boyfriend and he was Black. He came from New York all the way to meet me. So I'm the woman that the prince came off the sea to, over the sea to meet me. But anyway, that's another story. But, and that showed me how I was, my white head, it was so, what my English can be so bad, but it's my white head. I thought I certainly knew that I was of the white race.
Yes.
And I maybe had some, fordómar.
Biases or prejudices.
Yeah, against Black people that I didn't know about until I came so close to one of them.
Right.
And yeah, so I find out about myself by writing it. It's like, yeah.
Well, and you said in an interview that I read about, like right after Aprílsólarkuldi got nominated, you wrote about or you gave an interview about the book, and you were talking about how you approached it like a scientist, and that you wanted to kind of understand why you had had this episode of mental illness, and so you were kind of, yeah, you approached it very scientifically, which I thought was an interesting thing to say, because it is such a poetic book. So like you're writing like a poet, but you're researching your life like a scientist, which I think is a very interesting balance.
Yeah, and when I talk to you, I also realize that I write for fun because it makes me happy and to tell a story. And often my life is so full of story that I have to tell it because it's amazing story to be mad, you know, and it's a very big experience. And so I have a big story to tell, and I tell it for other people and myself, and I like to find out how you tell a story, and how do you came close to the reader, or you came close to the story you're writing. So, but it makes me very happy to write also.
I think that's something that you don't hear from writers quite enough.
No.
I think for a lot of people, writing is such a important part of their lives, but it's also like it's work, and it's difficult, and there's this idea of being an author where you have to be like super serious and like very stoic. But I like the idea that for you it's joyful.
Yeah, and therefore I liked so much Kurt Vonnegut. And when I discovered him, and he was so he made this of his stories fun to his stories, and I really admire him. And because he showed me that you could write a joyful story and using fun and how yeah. So yeah,
but still but was still with trauma in it. Like I think that's a really interesting example too, because his books also often have like these very traumatic moments in them.
Yeah,
but they are really fun to read, and you can have both.
Yeah, actually, that's I like very much, and I maybe should take more. I use humor in my books, but I don't use it, you know. Yeah, of course I use it like, yeah, I know about when I'm using humor, sometimes not, but and being funny is not telling jokes, you know, but you have the humor in the text and in the how you read it. And I hated this idea about the serious writer. Of course, it's very serious to write, and it's so difficult. And our Nobel Prize winner, Halldór Laxness, he said the writing was like a digging skurði, you know.
Like a grave.
Yeah, digging graves. Yeah, digging graves, actually.
He's also somebody for he reading his writing, it does strike me that he probably didn't have a great time while he was doing it, but they are really funny. They're like I think there's like a great tradition in Iceland of writing very serious things that are still really funny to read.
Yeah.
And it's like a very, like you're saying, it's a very particular kind of humor. It's not like a bunch of, you know, snappy jokes. It's not like going to stand-up comedy. But the situations themselves, like the absurdity of it, or like the way that something is said is just so resigned that it can be quite funny.
Yeah, and for example, the Icelandic sagas, and they were so serious, and there was a lot of serious men writing about them, and it was so boring. But then Helga Kress came, and she explained Njála, the main saga, like it was a very, what you say, oh, I lost the word. Yeah, like a funny and
like a tragicomedy.
Yeah, like a tragic comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't remember the other word, but anyway, she showed us that it was very funny and very absurd, and it was kind of. I found kind of freedom in her writings, and to look at the sagas with another eyes.
I think it's actually quite liberating.
Yeah, and of course it's allowed to be serious, and but it's a art also to be a serious, and yeah, don't be dull. Although you're serious.
I think that's a really good rule. Don't be dull, even if you're serious. Let's see. I have so much that we could talk about, but let's see. What are the well, I was wondering, since it's come up in a couple different ways. I read another interview that you did where you were talking about the fact that at the time you were going through this episode of your life, there wasn't really anything in the way of trauma assistance or trauma help. There was just like you just went to an institution and kind of like went away from the world. And I was wondering, well, I mean, I guess maybe how you feel about the way that your book has like any conversations that have started about mental health and mental illness. Do you feel like there's a better way of dealing with trauma now, or do you think it's much the same?
Yeah, I think there are better ways to deal with trauma, and it's okay to say trauma and traumatic and all those words. And the fordómar, how did you say fordómar?
The prejudice.
Yeah, they have getting lower. But in some way, we are not allowed to be strange anymore, because we should all be normal and we should all be healthy. And what is healthy and what is normal? And because in the old days, then like there was a technic guy from the radio in Iceland, and he told me before. Then the mad people, it's not. Or the sick people, they were scratching on his shoulder just to say, I'm going to save the world. I must take over your studio. And do you know what I mean? It's it was like they were allowed to, and nobody was boring with them. Nobody, they just talked to them and said, no, it's not time to free the world, or it's you have to do it later, or where's your mother, or something. You know?
Sort of step into it with them.
Yeah, and that is a special way to deal with sickness, to meet the sick people as the same level as they are. And yeah, so I think everybody now is working on themselves, trying to be healthy, trying to be normal, trying to lose the trauma. But there is nothing that is as good as a good trauma, you know, or a good or a good manic depression. But it's of course life dangerous. It's a death serious. But it's a great experience, and it's good also to look at it as an experience, and you can write about it, and you can do something about it, and you can talk to people about it, and I think it's both ways, you know. There are less fordomar.
Prejudices.
Yeah, there are less, yeah. But also this, yeah, when I heard the guy from the radio say this, in the old days, they were lying on your shoulder trying to save the world, and it was not so serious, because now it's very serious. If somebody wants to save the world, they put him to the clinic, and the only person that can save the world is Greta Thunberg. They haven't put her in a mental institution, but so she's doing a great job. And
sort of a prophetess.
Yeah.
I think it's when you're talking about the like meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful scene when in the book where Védís is working at Kleppur at the mental institution.
Yeah.
And she's taking this woman around, like she takes the patients on outings.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they go to the pool.
Yeah.
And the woman takes her top off, and
Yeah.
everybody just in the hot pot pretends they don't see her.
Yeah.
And then later, she's actually being taken to get an abortion that she doesn't want.
Yeah.
And everyone pretends like they don't hear her saying that she
Yeah.
doesn't want this, and she becomes invisible. And Védís is the only one who tries to actually talk to her about what she's feeling and what she's saying, and meets her where she's at.
Yeah. And she's telling her story also. Later, she couldn't do so much when she was young, and didn't have the power to do, but later she has the power to write the story. And then I think if you write about something, you care about it in very, very often. So yeah. So this is not my idea to meet the patients or to meet people at the same level. It's Søren Kierkegaard, I think, the philosopher, he talked about this, and it was kind of a spiritual awakening for me to read about that, and especially about sick people, because if somebody came to you and said, I'm going to free the world, and if you say, okay, you're a manic depression now, and nobody can save the world, or you're such a stupid, or it isn't possible. But then instead you could say, I'm going with you to save the world. What can we do about it? And then you're meeting the person at the same level. So I think that is going to have more good result than say, no, it's you're not going to save the world. Because I once went, I thought I was the Mother Mary, and I thought I was going to have a holy child, and I was wondering about this idea, and I couldn't. It was a crazy idea. I was Mother Mary going to have a holy child. Like, of course, all children are holy, but anyway, this was the idea. And then I went to see a Catholic priest, and I told him about this, that I was Mother Mary going to have a holy child. And I thought he would call the Pope and say, he's a mad woman, shouldn't we burn her on a, what you call it, brenna
at the stake.
Yeah, at the stake. Yeah. or get her some drugs so she don't have this idea. But then instead, when I told him that I was Mother Mary and going to have a holy child, he only said, then you have to get married. and I just the madness or the idea just disappeared. Like it was like I got the light. I said, "Okay, I'm going here a little bit crazy," and you know, because he came to me at the same level. Then you have to get married. Because the Catholic priests always say that to you when you're going to say your Mother Mary.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah, and I have another story like that. And then because you're so shameful when you go mad or lose control, you're so shameful. And when you talk like person like that, like this priest, then all the shame, it goes away.
Yes.
Because so you're just so thankful and so thankful, and it goes. The shame goes away, and that is a big gift.
Mm-hmm. It really is. I think it's something that you kind of have to train yourself to let go of, that feeling of shame if you're going to write about your life.
Yeah.
Like this, when you were talking before about people telling you shouldn't write about your life, and then pointing to Thorbergur.
Yeah.
Like I wonder. I mean, I think there's always the sort of the stereotype about Iceland and the fact that it's so small.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do that kind of writing because it's so exposing.
Yeah. My newest book is about the mother and daughter and their relationship. And now when I'm in Iceland, everybody say, "Oh, this is Elísabet and Johanna, the name of my mother." And everybody just is reading about them. But if I just publish the book in New York, then it was just another book about mother and daughter relationship. And it wasn't that kind of exposing, as you say, or it would, And I like that. And I would really like that this story would be translated into English, because I really wanted to see how the mother and daughter relationship feel to another,
like a different audience.
Yeah, like a different audience and more distant audience.
It is. I think that's a very. I think it's a really interesting aspect of literary culture in Iceland. How aware everyone is of both the authors and everything that they've already done, so that it can be very difficult to do something, or at least it looks like this from the outside. It can be very difficult to do something brand new.
Yeah.
And because there's already all this history for what you've already done.
Yeah.
Do you find that going back and forth between different genres helps you when you're trying to, because your writing is very inventive. All of the writing of yours that I've read has been super creative and also very different from the other things that you've done. It feels new to me every time. Does it help you to do things that are plays and then short stories and then novels?
Yeah, I think I like the most reading plays. And because you don't have to write so much. and no, also I like how people talk together, and it's so when I maybe hear people talk in the swimming pool or at the bus, I get so like I'm having a good orange, or no, but anyway, I maybe didn't understand the question.
Oh, I was gonna say that I made it confusing, but because you do plays and you do all of these different genres.
Yeah.
Like if switching back and forth helps you stay creative, and kind of keeps you on your toes almost.
Yeah. Maybe you're right. Yes, maybe you're right. And because when I have been written for too long, then I draw pictures. And
I didn't know that.
No, and that is, I have my latest book, or my next latest book is full of red horses that I painted.
Oh.
It's Tungl-útgáfan, and Ragnar Helgi and Dagur Hjartarson, they published that book.
I didn't know that.
No, it only in 69 copies.
Yes.
So it's very understandable that you haven't.
Yeah, just for people who haven't heard of this, Tungl, it means the moon. It's a micro press in Iceland.
Yeah.
And they do 69 copies of every book they publish. And don't they publish them only on the full moon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I went and read from it and under the full moon, and yeah, it was amazing to.
It sounds great.
Do. But people were crying because they couldn't buy the book. So, but they are very strict about it, that they don't want to have more copies. But I think they should change it until 169. But I don't know.
69 copies makes it like a luxury good at that point.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about dialogue.
But anyway, I'm drawing pictures to many of my books. Like the magic book of Elastina, there are a lot of drawings, and I like drawings in the book. And I had some drawings for Aprílsólarkuldi, but they didn't use it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I was actually gonna say, like, because you write plays, I was sort of assuming that you were a very visual person as well, and so this makes sense to me that you would also have illustrations. And I also kind of love it when there are pictures in books. Somehow, because we're adults, we're not supposed to have pictures, but
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But I like them.
Yeah, there is one picture in my new book, and it's a very heavy picture anyway. So actually, yeah, I like drawing pictures, and when I have been written too much or so much, then I like drawing, and it's amazing because one day in the summer, then I started to paint red horses. And I didn't know why I painted red horses all the time. And I painted the whole summer. And then a story came to me about a girl locked in a room. And she got so bored of being locked in the room that she cut her,
her wrist.
Yeah, her wrist. And then the red horses came out of her, out of
her blood.
Yeah. And she could manage to escape from the room by taking the red horses and taking into their their hair or the fax and tags.
Yeah, the mane.
Yeah. So she could escape from the heavy room. It was a dark and boring room, and she was there for 7 years or something. And
I love that picture. Like that's just it's beautiful. Like this I understand why people are upset they can't read it.
Yeah. I like this story very much. So I have been writing a lot about isolation when you are stuck in a locked room or.
That's really relevant for now. That's really relevant for now for COVID after we all spent so much time alone.
Yeah, but I was doing it long before.
Yes,
and it was because of my manic depression. I found myself locked in a locked room because of the shame and the difficulties of having this sickness. And I wrote about the woman. She was locked in a room, and then one day the guard came to her and said, "You must go out of the locked room, and I will bring you 12 memories, or I will bring you 12 visits to
Wishes, yeah.
so you can go out of the room." And actually the visit were memories. So memories that maybe from her life. So she suddenly knew that she has double life. She was locked up in the room, and I think we can have like a mental reality. We have something in our head, in our mind. Maybe I don't think I'm still locked in the room, but if something happens, if I'm threatened or something bad happens, then I have this, I can go into this, I can escape.
You can escape, yeah.
Into the locked room. And yeah, it's amazing story, actually. I would like you to read it. It's not so long. And how she finally gets out of the house, and the guard, he takes a picture, a drawing of the locked room, and he just take it and put it together and put it into his jacket. And then she finds out that she can't leave the locked room because somebody has the power over her, and that's maybe her father or the sickness or herself. Like
maybe all three.
Yeah, maybe all three. Yeah, exactly. I haven't thought about that, but you
This
could
sounds
be right.
This sounds amazing. I think that yeah, I could spend quite a lot of time reading your work. I think there's so much in it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And hopefully other people will get a chance to read some more of it in English soon.
Yeah.
Actually, I should ask, since we're kind of close to the end, I should ask if anybody has any questions.
Yeah.
I guess you can put them on the chat, or
yeah, raise your hands and I'll call on you if you have a question, or I'll enable you to ask your questions.
We could just keep chatting for the last 7 minutes or so, but if anybody has any questions.
Has somebody been watching us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We have an audience. They're very quiet. We can't see them, but they can see us.
Okay.
It's like sitting at a coffee house and having somebody listen to your conversation.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Hello.
So while people are thinking, I guess the last thing I was going to say, because you said you have a new novel, is that something that you're currently working on, or are you, or is that already done? Like, do you have your next project already, or are you still working on the new novel?
Yeah, I'm working about, it's not so long because I don't write, I always dream of writing a long book, but like men do, but I always write those short stories or short novels, novellas. But now I'm writing about a little girl, 8 years old. She went to Greece, and then her world changed a lot, and she discovered the new alphabet. She discovered honey and nuts and little and all kind of her soul fragile, or how can you say it? Yeah.
Fractures? Yeah.
Fragile. Yeah.
Oh, it's fragile. Yeah.
Yeah, fragile.
Yeah.
And when you're a child, I think the whole childhood is like a fragile, or so that's we should take care of the childhood. And also this happens when you're in love. This spiritual awakening or fragile takes place. And I once, when I went to the Syria, I also found this, that I was so bored in my own menningarheimur.
Your own cultural world.
Yeah, my cultural world. It was only Beck and Shakespeare and Ariel Ultra. And, you know, there was another world, but the same people. Everybody was dressed different, eating different, and the different music. And the cultural was different, and that fragiles. Therefore, I got fragile. This is such a bad word for me, but you know, then you suddenly, it's like having a new birth.
Oh yeah. Yes, you're taking all of this other sensory input in.
Yeah, and then. I think it's necessary for you to go different places and to meet different people, and yeah. So I found out when I went to Syria that it was good for me to meet different people, and it was good for my soul, not only for my camera, you know, but for my soul, actually. So my soul went wider, and my soul got wings, and yeah, everything. So
it's a very I think it's very important for all of us. If we can do it.
Yeah.
Like even if it's not you know, traveling to another country, I think like just stepping outside of yourself can be so.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, it's great if you can. Yeah, just sort of allowing yourself to be open like that to something that's totally different from what you know.
Yeah, and as you say, you don't have to go abroad to another country. You can go to a new neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
or you could talk to the woman next to you at the coffee house, or I sometimes do that, or I did anyway, just talking to people. I maybe stop them at walking the road and ask them something, or yeah. So always like that, meeting people and talking to them. And I don't do it now because I've been so sick from anxiety. What you say, kvíði?
Anxiety.
And and anxiety. And because I had that problem too 2 years ago, and I'm not recovered still. So I'm not talking so much to people in the street, but so I'm just trying to recover, be healthy and normal again.
Well, I hope that you are recovering, but I'm also glad that you took this time to talk to me, which is sort of like talking to somebody on the street, actually.
Yeah, thank you.
So
nice talking to you.
It is very nice talking to you, and I think we're at the end of our hour. So our quiet little conversation is going to end for the moment, but I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Thank you on our behalf at Scandinavias for talking with us today too, Elísabet. Good luck in 2 weeks in Helsinki.
Thank you.
And then thank you very much, Larissa, for the excellent moderating. And please do join us on Thursday, the 20th at 1 p.m. to talk with the Sami author. So yes, thank you again.
Should I come again the 20th of October?
if you want to listen to it, if you want to listen on someone's conversation, you're welcome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see. Now I can do the Zoom.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you,
See you
everyone.
all.
Okay,
Thank you,
goodbye.
and thanks for having me. It has been a great fun and very inspiring.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So
Yeah.
lovely.
Thanks.
See you later.
Bye.
Yeah, see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.